Today on Sports Central, we'll be going over our next final prediction of this 2020 offseason, and it will be over the Ohio State Buckeyes. And this is a team that went 13-1 in 2019, made it all the way to the college football playoff. And yeah, that was a pretty impressive year as Ryan Day's first season as head coach. Same with Justin Fields. Justin Fields had quite a season, and he's expected to be one of the best quarterbacks in the nation heading into 2020. But nonetheless, today we're going to be going over 2020 and whether or not Ohio State can make it back to the college football playoff, and whether or not Justin Fields will be the best quarterback in the nation next season. We're also going to be going over your returning production and a full prediction on every game on Ohio State's schedule moving into 2020. So yeah, with that, let's look at your season trends from 2019 for this team. They were 8-0 between September and October, and they were actually completely undefeated through the entire regular season. Their only loss last season was in the postseason against Clemson. So yeah, they were 13-1, 5-1 between November and the postseason. And once again, the only loss coming to Clemson. Some of their key wins from last season: they beat Indiana on the road 51-10. Also had a big blowout win at Nebraska 48-7, and that was expected to be a close game. Let me remind you. I believe College Game Day was in town for that Nebraska game. And same with that Indiana team. Of course, Indiana was a bowl team last season, and for Ohio State to blow them out like that was very impressive, especially in the first stages of the season. They also blew out Wisconsin, your division winner for the West Division last season, 38-7. And they also beat Penn State 28-17, and also had a big win against Wisconsin, 34-21 in the Big Ten Championship. And yeah, they basically blew out every opponent during the regular season. They put up 70 points on some teams. Very impressive season for Ohio State. As far as your returning production goes, you return your starting quarterback, Justin Fields, which he, in my opinion, could easily be the best quarterback in the nation next season. He's got a ton of upside, and especially considering that last season was his first main season as a starting quarterback. He put up nearly 3,300 yards of passing with 41 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. That is an incredible touchdown to interception ratio, and he was also a very accurate quarterback, 67% completion in the 2019 season. So yeah, Justin Fields, watch out for him. He's going to be the big player on Ohio State, and it would not surprise me a single bit to see him perform pretty similar to how Joe Burrow did in the 2019 season. Yeah, he could easily be the first overall draft pick next offseason. Be sure to watch out for that. However, they do lose their major running back, J.K. Dobbins, which he was a major player for this team as well. 2,200 yards, 23 touchdowns. So that's going to be a very tough loss there. However, they do bring in Oklahoma running back Trey Sermon, which that's going to be huge. Of course, earlier on when Trey Sermon didn't look like he was going to be coming to Ohio State, I was a little concerned for this running back position at Ohio State, but Trey Sermon, he was a great running back at Oklahoma. So I think he's going to do just as good or even better at Ohio State. Watch out for him for sure. They also returned their top receiver, Chris Olave, which he's a big player for this team as well. Can't forget about him. He was actually, once again, the best receiver on this team. 845 yards and 12 touchdowns last season. They do lose their second and third wide receivers, though. KJ Hill is one of them. He had 630 yards last season with 10 touchdowns. And, of course, Benjamin Victor is also going to be gone. He had 570 yards with 6 touchdowns last season. They do return their fourth wide receiver and Garrett Wilson, and of course he didn't have as big of an impact as, say, Chris Olave had, but he still put up just over 400 yards with 5 touchdowns last season, so of course he's not going to be bad at all. But yeah, for Justin Fields, he's got a couple of good weapons there with Olave and Wilson. And don't forget, this Ohio State team has got a great recruiting class coming in, so I'm sure they'll get a good receiver out of that for sure. I believe they got a 5-star receiver coming in. Don't quote me on that, but from what I remember looking at the recruiting, they've got a couple of really good receivers coming in for the 2020 season. Watch out for that. As far as the offensive line goes, they lose 2 on the offensive line. They also lose 2 defensive linemen. And as far as the defense goes, they also lose a linebacker and 3 in the secondary. So the defense does take a couple of big hits, losing 6 starters. But overall for Ohio State, once again, with the recruiting classes, this team has done very, very well. And so I think they'll be just fine on the defense. But it brings up the question, will Justin Fields be the best quarterback nationally in 2020? That's a really tough question. Of course, it's tough to predict how well a quarterback's going to do. But from what I'm seeing here, for him being as young of a quarterback as he is, and to throw 41 touchdowns and only 3 interceptions in a tough conference, very, very impressive by Justin Fields. I think he could easily be just on the level that Trevor Lawrence is at. It's going to be a big battle for the Heisman between Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence, in my opinion. Both of those quarterbacks were just great last season, and Justin Fields, the only thing that he doesn't have in comparison to Trevor Lawrence is a college football playoff title. Of course, I think it's definitely possible that Ohio State gets a title in 2020 and is able to add that to Justin Fields' resume. Who knows? But once again, he's definitely going to be a quarterback to watch out for. And it also brings up chances of another college football playoff title run in 2020. I think it's very, very possible for Ohio State. Once again, they've got the talent, they've got the running back, they got the quarterback. Pretty much everything that they need to make it to the college football playoff is here in 2020 for this team. I mean, they've got easily the amount of talent to do so. So definitely be watching out for Ohio State next season. I think they'll be steamrolling. I mean, considering how much they absolutely destroyed the Big Ten last season, it wouldn't surprise me a single bit to see that again in 2020. As far as your schedule goes, you start off the season with an easy game against Bowling Green on September 5th. Then you got a big showdown at Oregon on the 12th, and of course that game won't be as tough of a one since, of course, Justin Herbert's not going to be in Oregon anymore. But then they got Buffalo at home the next week, followed by Rutgers. And then in your October, you got Iowa, Michigan State, Penn State, and Nebraska, all in that order. So that's probably going to be your toughest month there. Then in November, you got Indiana, Maryland, Illinois, and then Michigan in that order. So yeah, with that, let's look at your September. I think you go 4-0 through September. And of course, that Oregon game, don't forget about that one. That one's going to be tough. I don't care which quarterback's under center for Oregon. That's just going to be a tough game all around. For Ohio State having to go across the country, basically, to play Oregon in general, that's just going to be a tough one. The good thing for Ohio State is that Oregon does not have Justin Fields once again. I do think they get the win there in the end at Oregon. But as far as your other three games in September goes, I think those are blowover games with Bowling Green, Buffalo, and Rutgers. As far as your October goes, I think that you go 3-1. You're going to get a win against Iowa, Michigan State, and Nebraska. All three of those games should be pretty much blowout games. But that Penn State game is going to be a tricky one, I think. Coming off of two pretty tough games with Iowa and Michigan State. Of course, both of those teams should be able to give Ohio State a decent fight. And of course, having to travel to Michigan State and having Penn State on the road after a road game, it just doesn't really set up well in the schedule. I mean, when you have two road games on or in a row, basically that's what Ohio State has here. They've got Michigan State on the road. Then the very next week, they got Penn State, a huge showdown. I just think that they're going to take a loss there. It's a tricky game. I think it's a trap game is what you could say as well. And Penn State is going to be a team that's going to be just as good as Ohio State next season. Of course, they've got the talent there. They certainly do. And of course, Penn State being at home, it's going to be a very tough one there. I do think you take a loss. But overall, that's going to be your only loss of your season. I think you absolutely run through your November easily. Indiana should be an easy one, followed by Maryland and Illinois. Both of those should be easy ones as well, followed by Michigan. And of course, the reason why I think Michigan's going to be an easy win is because you've got them at home. I mean, no doubt in my mind that Ohio State should run over Michigan like they always do in this 2020 season. So yeah, with that, your record prediction is going to be 11-1 for Ohio State next season. Once again, your only loss is going to be at Penn State. That's just too tough of a place to play, and Ohio State's had trouble there in the past, and I think that's the main reason why they do lose to Penn State. And plus, they've got plenty of talent in Penn State too. Can't forget about that. So once again, record prediction for next season, 11-1 for Ohio State. I think they make it all the way back to the Big Ten Championship. Wouldn't surprise me a single bit to see them make it into the college football playoff as well. I mean, even if you do have one loss at Penn State, I think this team's easily going to be able to make it back to the college football playoff, even if they do have one loss, in my opinion. I mean, this team's going to run through the entire schedule, I think. I mean, the only close game that you'll have probably is against Oregon outside of that Penn State game. So, quite honestly, for Ohio State, it should be a pretty easy bid to get into the college football playoff. But then again, let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this team. Let me know whether you disagree with anything here. I once again want to thank you guys all for watching. Slap a like on this video and subscribe as well. If you enjoyed this one, stay tuned for more as always from All Sports Central, and I will see you all later.